Welcome, everyone, to the Hope at Work podcast. With me today is Melissa Painter. She is the founder of Breakthrough. Melissa, tell us a little bit about what Breakthrough is and who you are.
Happy to be here. Breakthrough is an immersive, interactive micro break taking tool that people use during the flow of their workday. And it came out of work that my team and I doing. So to the point of who I am, I'm someone who's been thinking about the part of our intelligence that's in our body versus just in our head, and has been thinking for a long time about how to motivate more people to move more.
Okay. So how in the world did you get interested in that? Was this your field of study? Was this like a passion side project or product? Like, where did this come from?
It actually came out of research and work we had been doing around the future of movement and the future of sport, combined with research and work we were doing in spatial computing. So augmented and virtual reality, off-body sensors, spatial sound. And we were looking at a moment where it seemed like computing was heading in a direction where it might allow people to have engagements with technology that were more true to us being whole body thinkers and learners. So I would say my area of study my entire life has been about that, the intersection between thinking and moving. But in a storytelling way, my actual work started out as being an experienced designer, as a film director. And
really?
I'm still doing that today in terms of delivering experiences to people.
That's fascinating. Okay. So I remember reading the biography of Steve Jobs. And he was talking at one point about he took a ton of meetings while he was walking. He got out of the office constantly. He made that a real point of emphasis. And I think he talked about, I am way more creative when I am up and about versus when I'm sitting at a desk. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the science behind why movement is so important. I imagine you've got quite a bit of experience with this.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually an interesting thing, because sometimes when you encounter objections to the idea that moving helps thinking in the workplace, because all of us have been conditioned to sit still, to think hard in front of our tech, there's not even a grouchy IT person who you ask, have you ever had a good idea while walking, who's going to be able to say no, because it's happened to all of us. It's just lived experience. And we probably have had that experience since we were little. The science is really fascinating. So there's a couple of different things that contribute to that. One is that when you're gently moving through a space, you're experiencing pattern, soft fascination, things that are keeping the busy part of your mind busy, right? The part of your mind that might be distracting you from deeper thoughts. And so that's part of why you have those moments of epiphany, like the answer came to you of a problem that you've been struggling about for a long time. But there's also just the truth that humans were designed to be moving thinkers from the very beginning. If you think about our biology, it wasn't sit still and get things done. It was to be out, moving, learning, etc. And it's really only in modern times that we've kind of conditioned that out of people. So you just put your finger on precisely the thing that I find so fascinating and also so detrimental about so much of modern technology, because the fact is we wouldn't have to sit still so much if we weren't all, to some extent, chained to devices that demand it. It's good for the machine to sit still, but not necessarily for us.
It's so relatable, I think, for all of us. And I know I used to have to mow the lawn. I'm in a new community now where it's done for me, which I don't like because I had my best ideas when I was mowing the lawn.
Yeah.
So yeah, what you've described, I think all of us can relate to. So tell us a little bit more about Breakthrough itself. I know you've got I think over 2 million people using this product at 45,000 different organizations. How in the world did you get that kind of traction so quickly?
It's a funny way. I mean, we literally were working on something that was delivered in headsets, so in virtual reality, which probably would have been applicable to maybe 10 people on the planet. And it was never that we were excited about being in a form of technology most people didn't touch. It was just that we were really interested about using technology that allowed you to move. So for us, what happened is that the advent of COVID, Microsoft came to us and the Teams team in particular And they said, the world is coming onto this platform. People are really stuck. They're stuck at home. Kids can't go to school. We know you've been working on this movement, Microbreak. We know that you didn't intend it to be coming at people in, little rectangles on their desk, but would you try and see what you could do? And so we took all of the design thinking that we discovered in this other form factor and brought it into Teams and just put it out in the world. Honestly, I look back at what it was when we first launched it, and I'm kind of like a little shy because I do believe in rapid iteration and, responding in reaction to what you're learning from the world, et cetera. But I mean, we put out something really narrow and really small, and yet it just started to grow like this. So for me, there were some joys in that. There was a joy in realizing that we'd created something that actually went global out of the gate. That's unusual. Most products are developed for one vertical, one problem set, one user, one country. And that was not us. We were out in the open ocean from day one. And we also landed in so many different kinds of companies, tiny, businesses, small mom and pop businesses, but also enormous global corporations and kind of everything in between. And so I would say part of why it happened is because we put it right where people were. We put it in the flow of people's day. We put it in their work tools. And those were things we were really confident about, that we wanted it to feel like something you would just reach for, like a cup of coffee. We also thought that a lot of things that were out in the world, quote unquote, called well-being offerings that were intended to impact an employee's life were absurd in their design, in that the chance of someone actually having time to get to them was just a no-go, at least a no-go for most of the people that we cared about. We wanted to give breaks to people who never took breaks at all.
Right. Speaking of which, so really fascinating to hear how this came about. I know the NHS is one of your clients, and I know that one of the reasons that this is an important type of tool is burnout is so, it's such a problem in healthcare in the entire planet, but the NHS in particular. I know when I lived in London, it was in the headlines frequently. And you talk about, I think, something that's really important. The tool that you developed, you put right in front of people where they were in the flow of their work, so that it wasn't something they had to seek out. So when you have worked with the NHS, what are some of the feedback, some of the lessons you've learned in that particular organization? Because I think healthcare is a really important institution in the States that needs to address this type of challenge.
We knew they were going to be our toughest audience because healthcare workers are notorious for not taking care of themselves. And it's not their fault. I mean, you hear the stories of people working a shift and barely even having time to get to the restroom. I mean, part of it's just the pace of the work itself, but it's compounded by a few other things. And these were specifically, this was the person we were looking to serve. We were interested in people who were always going to put others first, who were going to soldier through when, or buckle up or be stoic when things got really tough, and who were leaders and who were committed to their team. And, that is, it's a known truth, but it's one that's, that it would be great to try to solve for, that people who were really drawn to their work for purpose reasons, that could be someone working at a, rescue organization, a nonprofit, it could be a teacher, it could be a healthcare provider, their likelihood to hit burnout and not just burnout, but like that wall where they've just completely crashed, it is higher because they're going to keep going because they have a real passion around what they do. So right. What we learned with the NHS was a couple of different things. One, we already had sort of cheated. We'd done a lot of research about this, and we knew that women in particular were more likely to pick up a tool that could be good for them if they believed it could be good for others. And so out of the gate, Breakthrough was not me time. It wasn't, whatever luxury item a well-being thing was. It was something that was made for you and your team. And one of the biggest things inside Breakthrough is that it's shareable. So people gift it to each other. That ended up being really important inside the NHS because the NHS is also a place like no one has time to learn a new tool, and no one has time to absorb communications that are being broadcast at them from the top down, right? I mean, the chance of someone learning a new well-being tool because it was passed to them in an email communication campaign are, I would just say, nil. I mean, nil. Do you have time to read your emails? Do you have time to read your important emails? What about your emails from the well-being team? I love well-being teams. We work with them daily. It's hard for them. It's an obstacle, right? So how do you communicate? So we didn't want a thing that you communicated about. We wanted a thing that we just handed to you. You could choose to do it or not, but it would be there right in your hand and you could experience it quickly in your own body. So those were two things. And the third was breakthroughs breaks were only 2 minutes. Now, the beauty is from a science, I mean, that we landed on that number because that is what it takes to literally turn your metabolism back on. And theoretically, we design these to help you also reset your mood and your mind. And that's enough time. Well, as one of my most favorite nurses at the NHS says, you know, when you hand something to someone that's good for them, good for their team, and you tell them it's only 2 minutes and they still tell you they're too busy, at that point, you really can look them in the eye and say, really? Really? For 2 minutes? And if so, something's really sideways here. And so I think those were the things that, but one of my most favorite recent stories from the NHS, I was interviewing someone who is an engineer, and he was explaining that his most favorite thing about Breakthrough was that it takes exactly as long to brew a cup of tea as it does to take a breakthrough. So he takes his phone to the kitchen while he puts the kettle on and does a break while he's getting his tea.
Multitasking, smart man. I love it. Well, that's super helpful to understand kind of how it's being utilized in the wild. Now, you've got integration immediately with Microsoft Teams. I think it's integrated with Slack now. So you've got it embedded in all of these workplace tools, correct? Exactly.
And more to come. It just really hones to our philosophy of trying to be a very point-based solution, but that delivers something quite impactful that can be kind of everywhere all at once. So it's there when you need it and you don't have to go fishing for it. I mean, another thing is we just wanted to stay off this device completely because pre-COVID, what we already knew was that around the world, people had gotten really bad at taking breaks. And part of why they'd gotten bad at it is their idea of a break was to turn to their personal device and start scrolling through their personal social feeds, which was exactly the same physical, like biometric impact that they were getting from reading their email. So early on with Breakthrough, when we were testing it with Marines and also with engineers at a company that shall remain nameless, there were adrenal spikes in both communities. And the adrenal spikes in the engineers were just that they stopped breathing when they were reading their email. Most of us do. I dare you to try it the next time you're looking on LinkedIn or reading email. We hold our breath to be ready. It's like a thing that we're just still holding from like deep instinct, right? So that's great if there's a tiger about to pounce, and probably it's a good idea from the Marines. But if it's you reading email for like 8 hours, not so good, because breathing is important.
Whether you're a payroll pro or an employee wanting to understand your paycheck better, we've got you covered. Tune into It's About Payroll for expert insights on payroll trends and compliance, or check out It's About Your Paycheck, the go-to podcast for employees looking to understand their pay and rights. 2 great shows, 2 great hosts. Listen now, brought to you by Work Defined, where payroll meets clarity.
Wow. Okay. I'll have to check that out next time and pay attention to the next time I'm really immersed.
I guarantee it.
Wow. Okay. So question for you. This is going to seem off topic, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but obviously the world of work is changing a lot. And to your point, we're much more sedentary, we can work from wherever. We're also seeing the advent of new technology like artificial intelligence, right? So I'm curious to hear your point of view on AI. How is it related to some of the work that you're trying to do? How do you think it has the potential to impact all of us in the workplace? What's your point of view?
A couple different things. One of the first things I'll say is that, it's obvious that AI does some things really, really well and other things not well at all. And it's going to be a very, very, very long time before it catches up with the things it's doing not well at all. It's very good at absorbing large amounts of information, processing it swiftly, and spitting it back out, data, all of these things. It doesn't have any embodied intelligence. It doesn't have any of the form of intelligence that humans have with the incredibly deeply evolved sensory system that we have, with our body-based knowledge, our sense of each other, our sense of interconnectedness, our sense of place. It just doesn't have that. How could it? It's completely abstracted from body. So there's this sort of immediate issue, which we see in a lot of the larger corporations that we're serving, where, obviously HR teams and learning teams are thinking about the tremendous change management challenge that's in front of them in terms of incorporating AI. I mean, there's training, there's people afraid of losing their jobs. There's an immediate short-term pressure, both economic and people pressure that's happening in all these organizations. And there's people feeling pressure to learn things they don't understand. So that's like a today problem. But I would say both a today and tomorrow truth is that more important than ever before, it is training your people how to use all of their intelligence. And if part of their intelligence is in their body, it's a good time to stop telling them to turn it off at work. So I want to back up because you asked me about science, because body-based intelligence, what does that mean? I've got better social emotional skills. I've got emotional intelligence. What do I have? It's actually much more literal than that.
Okay.
My most favorite, I would argue, yes, it's also good for emotional intelligence, blah, blah, blah. And one of my most favorite studies about this, two actually, one looked at people on stockbrokers on the floor. So high intensity information environment, and sort of the myth that there's always the guy who shouldn't, because he didn't go to the right schools, make the right trade, but he does. And it's a pattern with him. Well, then why? And one of the things that they looked at is those people have stronger forms of interoception. So bear with me. Interoception is that you notice faster body-based changes, like your heart is starting to race, right? There's literally people that can't feel their own heartbeat, even if they were in charge of trying to figure out, is your heartbeat racing? Well, why does that matter? It's because our body can take in on a subconscious level patterns way faster than our conscious mind can. So what was literally happening to those traders is they were seeing the patterns before their brain could see them. And they knew something was going on because their body was telling them. Their heartbeat was starting to change. Their temperature might have been going up. So that's not like woo-woo. That is like concrete. Their body helped them cognitively understand that something was different. So an example. It's just an example. The human perception, sensory system is very, very good at that kind of thing, pattern recognition, but it's something we were designed to do while walking, while moving through landscape, not while sitting still while looking at a screen.
Interesting. And to your point, artificial intelligence does not have that same capability, despite the fact that it can take a large amount of data and aggregate it and make assumptions about it, but it's missing a lot because it's missing the body.
All multisensory inputs.
Yeah.
And it turns out that a lot of our intelligence comes from our multisensory inputs.
Wow. Okay. So let me ask you this then, Melissa. So what's next for Breakthrough? What's next for kind of just the general world of well-being? What do you see happening in the near future?
I'm sure like you, and I'd be curious what your answer back to this question would be. I feel like the well-being world of work is sometimes just seems like an alphabet soup of buzzwords in terms of what people are concerned about at any given moment. But what I do think that we're legitimately hearing today is that people are starting to realize that placing the burden, if you will, of well-being on the shoulders of their employees versus to each tackle individually out of a smorgasbord of benefits, which maybe they have time to get to or not, is not going to move the needle in the same way that making shared system level changes in terms of incorporating well-being into the flow of the workday. And at that point, it shouldn't even be called well-being. It's just baseline intelligence. Do you see what I'm saying?
I do, and I completely agree. And I have been talking about that for a while too, how when we think about the concept of well-being, right, it's a lot of folks have an association of, oh yeah, well, my organization's a proponent of that. They offer smoking cessation classes and yoga, and not that those things aren't good, but to your point, true well-being is actually redesigning the way human beings work and making well-being a part of the fabric of that. And we've said it multiple times now, baked into the flow of the work that they're doing, not separate from it. So it's not a separate benefit. It needs to be, considered in how do we redesign the work itself? And that's a really interesting thought too. I've asked it a couple of times recently from some folks I've been talking to. Whose job is that, Melissa, to redesign the way humans work? Because I don't think anybody in the traditional corporate organization would say, oh yeah, that's me. But I think it's going to end up being a collaboration of HR is going to bring their point of view and say, let's bring a human point of view. IT is going to come and say, hey, here's some new technology. The operations folks are going to say, okay, but logistically, here are the things that we're going to get done. I'm curious to hear your point of view on that.
I think you just put your finger exactly on it. I mean, the system is already way more fractured and siloed than made any sense even before we ended up in a moment of such hybrid workplaces. I mean, why is learning over here, well-being's over here? It's like, and then you have the ops that might be looking at how many hours are we calling real hours in a work week. I mean, these things all on some level need to be holistically aligned. And I think the role that you're talking about, the future visioning of how does this come to be one system that doesn't just, help an individual avoid burnout, but helps them grow into their full potential, what they could be giving back that organization, helps change team dynamics, has an impact on organizational character, has an impact on how innovative an organization can be. Because if everyone's deadened and just doing what they do, just doing task-based work, there's no possibility for innovation, right? So I think it's a new role. One of the things that has been nice for us in being global is we see in some of our European customers this trend of someone might have well-being in their title, but they also have future of work in their title. Well, guess what? They're sitting in the technology department. And so I think exactly what you said is true, but it's going to take having some respect for people who have a different kind of design sensibility than perhaps HR has been ready for in the past.
Well said. Completely agree. So we do need to wrap this up, but I wanted to just come back to the fact I work with a lot of folks in healthcare, nurses in particular, both inside of the organization I work with and our clients. And I constantly hear, my wife actually is a volunteer at a local hospital here in Nashville as well. And so, I constantly hear from the nursing population, I don't even have time to go to the bathroom. I definitely don't have time to eat. And so I think you've identified something that's really critical that I would love to see healthcare embrace and adopt. So for those folks that may not have access to your particular tool yet, just some general advice on how to break away from the mindset of I don't have time, and start incorporating some elements of what you've described into their daily kind of experience.
I think part of it is a mindset shift, which is always hard. But the truth is, when we look at are people actually permissioned to take breaks, if you were to ask their employers, the employers would say, yes, right? Okay, but then so then perhaps it's the individual that feels not fully permissioned. They feel legitimately too busy. I think the thing that's hard to understand is that 2 minutes is very short, but it can deliver an immense benefit. And the only way, we've heard this from our users in all different kinds of situations, the only way to know that is to just force yourself to try. So that can be standing up from your desk and walking to the water cooler. It could be standing up and taking 5 deep breaths. It could be standing up and stretching. It could be having a conversation with a colleague. Any of those things, those short moments of context shifting and just putting what just happened behind you and just being in the moment in your own body, no bells and whistles, it doesn't matter, it will help. there's just so much we've done to tell people that it takes more than that to be physically healthy. Commit to running a 5K, do it 20 minutes. I mean, so all of this stuff and all those things are great, but it's also BS because you could be doing all of those things and not moving at work and you'd still be upping your chance of an early death. So I think it's the micro that's so fascinating to me. Our bodies have a lot of plasticity. And if you can just do those small things, people start to feel the difference. That's just the truth.
Absolutely. So those micro changes really important. One last question, because you said something earlier that I didn't get a chance to revisit. You talked about a lot of folks will grab their phone when they're looking for a quick break and they'll start scrolling. Are you suggesting that that's not a good way to break?
It's hard, but if you think about it consciously, you'll understand that why work is so exhausting is that we're in a constant environment of information overload. And what you're finding on your phone, even though the information might not seem vital, it might not be an Excel with the year's budget, it could be a stupid notification about a Hollywood celebrity. It's still information on like a ground level body-based way. It's still impacting you in the same way. Your body is still panicking. Your mind is still panicking. Go, I've got to learn that. I've got to learn that. Because we were designed to gather as much information as we can. So that's not restful. And I'm leaving out all of the other things that might not be, catering towards your well-being that you're getting out of these devices. I think the best way to think about it is there's a reason that we started to call this the center of the attention economy. And part of why we feel so busy is, our tech is really good at holding too precise of a calendar, but it's also because this takes so much of our attention, we think we have no time.
Well said. Great place to land. Melissa, thank you so much for joining the podcast, and thank you for what you do. I'm so glad that there are people out there that are thinking about creating products that actually help us be more thoughtful about taking breaks. So thanks again for your time. We really appreciate it.
So glad to be here. Thank you for having me.